The theme for the day is, but honestly, don't trash your artwork. If you're creative, document everything, and it plays a huge role in our creative identity. And I have definitely been through a creative rut before. I don't know if you have, if you've ever experienced creative block and how annoying that could be if you do, and if that's your situation. But I kind of want to give you a few tips and tricks to help you with your creative block. And I also want to share a few other things, a part of my personal experience as a creative that would probably help you and motivate you in your creative journey. You can learn a lot from who you used to be. You can learn a lot from what you created 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 2 years ago. But if you don't look back at what you have created, at who you used to be, you won't remember all the things that you have created. You won't learn from your mistake. You won't learn from that version of yourself. And the truth is, no version of ourselves is perfect. If you throw out that work that you've made without reflecting, without documenting what was going on through your head when you created it, or reflecting why do you feel this way about your work, whether it's lyrics that you've written down, whether it's an artwork, whether it's a painting, and you're just quick to throw out what you've created, you will not be able to get the benefit of the doubt. As creatives, we can lose ourselves without reflecting, and we don't prosper if we don't reflect. I just want to say my own personal experience. I am a creative, and not my whole entire life I've been just doing one thing, one creative thing. I started out drawing and singing, and my creativity has sprouted out in many different forms. And I would say around the beginning of high school, freshman year, I was really into photography. I was really into scrapbooking. I was really into drawing, but not in the way that I used to. My creativity definitely did sprout and bud into many different forms. And I just have to say that now that I'm at the place where I'm at right now, I don't really pursue photography as much. I don't scrapbook anymore. I've been trying new things in a creative sense, and I believe that our creativity is constantly changing. We are constantly changing, and it doesn't serve us anything if we're not looking back at our creations or who we used to be. And it's crazy when I do look back at some of the works that I did, and it's almost as if I was a different person. And it's really important to keep those artworks because they can tell us a lot about who we are on a creative level, and how those old works can help us to grow in our creativity present day. And I feel like sometimes we judge our artworks too heavily. Sometimes we expect too much for ourselves when we are creating. Maybe we've turned our hobby or our creative side into a job, into a full-time job, and we kind of set a bar for ourselves. If we're not producing this much artwork, this many songs, if we're not producing this much work, it's not good enough. And we kind of base our worth on what we create, on our artworks, and it's not realistic, it's not reasonable to judge yourself based off of your accomplishments or your work. And I believe that you are so much more than what you create, and judging it won't do you any better. I believe that you can grow from your mistakes. You can grow from artworks that you think isn't too good. And I think of like Basquiat, the famous artist, and his work was so unique. It was so different from from other artists. And if he was so quick to judge himself and say, well, this is really bad because it's different from other people, well, he wouldn't have had the type of success that he accumulated for himself. And if we are too quick to judge, and not careful enough to reflect on what we create or consistent enough, then we lose that side of ourselves. Never forget where you came from. Never forget where you started. Never forget who you were or the things you used to do. And when you fully understand where you started, it adds to your unique testimony. It gives you character. You should be proud of where you came from. And it's so important to be humble in our creativity when we are pursuing our careers. When we are pursuing our careers, whether it's in the arts or not, but more specifically, when we are pursuing the things that we love, it's so important to be humble in our creativity, humble in what we create, because I believe that creativity is something that is it's like dominoes, and it bounces off of other people, and we can be inspired by other people, and it's so important to be humble about it. Sometimes we grieve the death of pieces of ourselves that are changing, because as creatives, we are also changing. Our creativity changes just as mine has. And I do feel like my creativity does serve a purpose, but not the same purpose. And sometimes we grieve change. Sometimes we grieve our old self. And I believe that there's so many different versions of ourselves. And it's so important to fully be attentive to all of the versions of ourselves. I want to give attention to the version of myself that used to sing, or the version of myself that used to draw, the version of myself that used to be interested in scrapbooking and photography. I want to fully acknowledge that side of me before I move on and say, hey, I used to do something, because it's so intriguing that I used to do something that I would never think of doing right now. And I feel like we can learn a lot from it, and a lot about who we used to be. We have to get comfortable with these changes in ourselves, and embracing it comes with acknowledging the old you, acknowledging your mistakes, acknowledging your failures. It's so important to document and to go back to document your lessons, record your lessons, whether it's in the form of art or songs or lyrics or writings, poetry. Record them. Don't throw them out, because when you can keep a little keepsake of your creations, it can be a huge teacher. Learning is a gift, even when pain is the teacher, even when your failures are the teacher, even when your mistakes and your trash artworks, quote unquote, is the teacher. It's a gift. If we're not reflecting on these aspects of ourselves, we're not going to grow as much as we could today without them. I can definitely tell you that I've grown on a creative basis by looking back at my old works and looking back at my old writings, whether it was poetry that I have written and I thought it was bad, but I can definitely reflect on it and say, hey, well, I know where I was going with this, and I could kind of revise it. And there's been so many times where I've looked back at my old voice memos and like my old podcasts, and I could say, wait a minute, I can definitely add on to it, and I have something to share or comments about that old podcast. So I used to do podcasting on a minimal level. So 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, and 10th grade, I had this series called the Life Speech series, where I would speak about my opinions, about my day, about anything that was going on in my life, about my lessons. And I'm so glad that I didn't throw out those voice recordings, because I definitely can tell you that my mind has changed so much. It has been through so many changes, and there's so much that I can get from it and learn about myself, because I have kept those recordings. And I want to encourage you to keep a lot of things. Keep a lot of things that you create. The next best thing that people look towards is community and people when they are in a creative rut and they need some spark. That's why Pinterest is a thing. That's why we look up to other people to find inspiration when we feel like there is a place in us that needs more lift. And not only on a creative sense, but even in other aspects of ourselves, when we feel like we are longing for a little bit more confidence in ourselves and confidence in our work. And if you are in a creative rut, please go to other people and seek inspiration from others, from groups, from bands, from events, from social events. What's going on down the block? Do they have like a concert? Is there a concert going on? Is there a band that's playing at this place? Hey, let me see if I could try to go. And maybe it'll spark some creativity. Let me go to this creative writing workshop. These things help us. And also, I wanted to say that it's so important to uplift other creatives and give them some encouragement, because you are also helping with their creative burnout or rut or whatever it is. And uplifting people, especially creatives, can help them in their season of being low. And you'd be surprised how much it would help you to receive, and not only to receive, but to give good feedback. And if you see something that you like that somebody's doing, if you see artwork or hear a song that somebody has created and you like it, don't be afraid to give them feedback and like whatever, and tell them what they're doing good. I think that feedback is so crucial for the creatives out there. And I'd like to close with reflect on your old work. Reflect on you. Ask yourself what was going on. Ask questions why you created your work. And it will surprise you what you could learn from the old you and how it could inspire you, potentially freeing you from your creative rut. Anywho, thank you guys for listening to this podcast, and I hope that you got a lot out from it. And I want to encourage you and tell you, keep being creative, keep being you, keep producing, keep working, but not to the point of burnout. Please give yourself some breaks, some rest here and there, and do not trash your artwork. Please document all the things you do, because what you create matters.